Hello. I want you to suffer, and you probably want to suffer too, for something. That's for sure. Um, because I don't really have any notes on this particular topic, and I'm just going off the dome, please do not fact check this for the American patriots. I will not be able to stand up to scrutiny. But I've been doing some research onto the anterior mid-cingulate cortex, which is a part of your brain, part of both hemispheres, somewhere right behind the frontal lobe, if I'm correct. But I know I've not posted the one other video where I talked about brain structures, but I'm sure I can make this interesting in some sort of sense of the word, because in very untechnical terms, this part of the brain deals with things such as motivation and willpower. And when I say I want you to suffer, I don't mean like the kind of mental purgatory that we're all so used to in this day-to-day age. I mean the kind of suffering that gives you good memories. I mean the kind of suffering that allows you to live longer. The kind of suffering that allows you to get what you want. Now, that may all sound fine and dandy, and what it basically comes down to is that we all need to be doing things that we don't want to do. And I found this very interesting because I write a lot about wanting to want and how we will pursue things that we don't want. It's like a pursuit of avoidance. We're putting in mountains of effort to not do something. And I heard somewhere that some people put in mountains of effort in order to avoid getting on top of a molehill. And because I don't like stealing quotes, I was trying to repurpose it there, but I didn't do very good. But basically, the anterior mid-cingulate cortex is one of the parts of the brain that most commonly atrophies with age. People that age well, like get into their geriatric years and still retain function to properly socialize, and they have the vim and vigor of a young man. Those are the people that I'm assuming that we all want to be, so therefore I propose that you are not suffering enough. The way that we can give sort of a hypertrophy to this part of the brain is through doing what we don't want to do. And this is where it gets complicated, because it's not just about doing things that are hard. I mean, sure, that's part of it, but many things on paper are difficult. But more often than not, when we're accumulating these hard tasks, we turn them into habits. And by virtue of that, we sort of tend to enjoy them for one reason or another. And that completely removes it from the category of being able to use this to hypertrophy, exercise this brain muscle of ours that we so desperately need for everything in life that we want. Where is this going? Suffer more. It's those things that when you do them, you are wildly, wildly uncomfortable, even at the thought of. When you are at the end of the day and you feel like, oh, there was a lot of things that I should have accomplished. There's a lot of things that I avoided. There's a lot of things that I wish I had done with my day. Usually those are the things that we start out the day with, and we're like, I don't want to do that. And then we put it off, we procrastinate, and procrastination ironically makes things a lot easier, because then when the deadline comes up and we have a time frame to do it, suddenly we don't have to rely on the anterior mid-cingulate cortex. I really hope I remembered that correctly. That'd be awkward if I kept saying the name of the brain structure over and over again like it means something and I got the wrong one. Basically, it gets complicated because we can't just do hard things. We have to do things that make us uncomfortable. Suffering, in a sense. And It's sort of like constantly finding those things that in the moment we immediately think, I don't want to do that, and doing them. Because, you know what, I'm just going to actually read the notes that I wrote down this morning. Yeah, bear with me if I stumble over some of this. We have to not get comfortable. If we allow ourselves to get comfortable in pursuing hard things, we are no longer pursuing hard things, losing our ability to do the very thing that we're doing. So when not constantly searching for those things which make us wildly uncomfortable, we are allowing our willpower to dwindle. Willpower, by my definition, this isn't in the notes, by the way, but you don't have to get too technical about it. I know there's things like tenacity and motivation and whatnot, but willpower is the ability to overcome the feeling of not wanting to do something we know ourselves capable of. We need the ability to constantly be doing what we don't want to do. But what happens when we suddenly want to do all of those things? We will eventually get to that point where we want to do those things after we've done them for a while, and that's great. That means we've made progress, but it also means that we will stop making progress if we become attached to doing those specific hard things because they're no longer hard. Interesting, right? So, if I don't want to... I remember I was writing these and I was thinking about making a YouTube video on it. That was the whole reason I wrote down this thing, which I usually don't do. If I don't want to say something because I feel as though I'll be judged for it, we would assume that I don't want judgment, right? That's where you're wrong. And this is where my voice becomes monotonous because I'm reading off a page. I want judgment, just not for those things which I know are my flaws, which I'm avoiding. The only way to overcome those things, however, is to allow those things to be judged on their current merits, not to hide them. Because otherwise, I've gained another thing that I don't want to be judged. The feeling of not being judged. And now I have to dedicate my energy to the anxiety and covering up even more things. I want other people to judge me based on the judgment of myself that I'd prefer. And yet I miss out on creating the person who would receive that judgment by hiding it. Interesting, right? So, all those things that we don't want are inseparably linked to the things that we do want. The main problem is in translation. Like, how do I go about telling you that I don't want this thing? And being unable to say what I actually do want. See, here's the problem, is because we make things in our head that we're like, I want this thing, and then our brain is like, cool. And it comes up in the background like, oh, here's the list of things that you need to do for that thing. And suddenly when we get those things in our hands and we're like, oh, there's a task that I need to do, because otherwise I'll feel like shit, because I know I won't be going towards my goal. I won't be working towards it. I won't be making progress on it. Suddenly there's like an antipathy towards the goal itself, because we look at that and the task that is that's associated, that we didn't initially come up with, that our subconscious came up with and suddenly presented to us. And now we're like, oh, maybe I don't actually want that thing. But the thing is that we do want that thing, we just don't want the task associated with it. So, if we make the terrible decision to just not associate with the task, to be like, no, there's a better way to do that. There's always a better way. Like, I don't want to have to take the side street and become the person who's able to do this thing that's towards my goal so then I can get the reward at the end. I want to just find the easy way. If we end up severing that task from our realm of possibilities, well, I mean, first of all, we're doing nothing. That feels horrible. But second off, we are removing the possibility to actually pursue that task by removing probably the easiest option to do. Like Occam's razor. Usually the simplest course to go about things is the most correct one. And ironically, in a lot of cases, when we're pursuing something, the most simple solution is often the easiest one. In a sense, the simplest one. It might not be initially easy, right? There may be a barrier of struggle and frustration to get over it. But then, once we accomplish that for ourselves, then things get easy. Like, imagine if you wanted to become a doctor, but you didn't want to get a degree in whatever specific subset field that you're trying to get into. Well, suddenly things just got really hard. Suddenly you look at your goal and you're like, no, that's impossible. Because you're like, oh, I can't get the degree because I can't get through medical school, and I can't get through medical school because of my GPA, and I can't raise my GPA because high school's already passed, and basically excuses. You're killing your dream for an excuse. So then you can have a moment of reflection upon a dream, and then that's that. It's dead. But then people will still hold on to that want, the desire for the thing, and they'll be like, no, but I do want to become a doctor. I just can't go to school. I can't afford it. Even if I took out a loan, I couldn't pay it back. But usually what it comes down to when you really examine these things is they will not. They will not. They don't have the desire to do things. They don't have the mental fortitude to pursue. How do you get that? By doing things you don't want to do on a regular basis in everyday life. How do you do that? You suffer. Sit there and suffer. And I find it really interesting because a lot of these things that will make you suffer directly make you suffer. Right? There's a difference here. I'm not telling you it is, like I said, to go sit in that purgatory where I'm not doing anything and then this is suffering. That's numbness. I think I mentioned this in a previous video, but like, numbness isn't the same as suffering. Numbness is far more unbearable than suffering because it lasts as long as you let it. Suffering, on the other hand, you have to put yourself there. Numbness, it just happens when you're not doing anything. And then people might actually try to, like, really suffer to get out of numbness, where, you know, that's where you get self-harm and shit. It's like the psychology behind that dog shit. So, you don't want to become numb. You don't want to become numb in the way that makes life circumstances just roll over you and then cause you to suffer by virtue of that. You don't want suffering to happen to you involuntarily. You want to have the suffering sort of be willing. Because you're going to suffer regardless in life. But do you want it to be like a low level, constant amount that just slowly builds up in a sort of linear progression throughout the span of your life? Or do you want to suffer for the things that you care about? Because let me be real. I tried to learn piano. I had a stint where I was trying to learn piano, and that was sheer suffering. Now that may sound ridiculous, all things considered. And you're like, what a third world problem. But I've got some boomer stories where I've really suffered. And without going into too much detail, those things were a lot more tolerable. Because I had to do those things. I sort of didn't have a choice. Like, just long bouts of self-exertion over the course of months and years and living out of desperation. It really gets tricky because we're now in a first world context, and did I say third world back there? I might have. Whoopsies. Can't fix it. First world problems. Once you get to that point, to really get out of like the first world trough where everybody just gets stuck, now you have to willingly suffer. That is really hard. To willingly suffer for a purpose that makes you stand out, that makes you a specialized tool that society needs, so then society will reward you. A lot of people want that. That's like the basis of just about every single goal that people have nowadays, especially in the first world. If your biggest goal is to be able to eat this month, then this does not apply to you. You don't need to suffer on purpose. I'm sure you have just enough motivation to get things done. And if you don't, that's a personal problem. I'm sorry. Good luck. But now that we're here, what do? You start doing the dishes in the exact moment that you do not want to do. You start doing other chores by the same vein. Everything that comes up that will sit in the back of your mind and distract you, just do it immediately. And then when those things are finally cleared and gone, you sit down and you do more things that you don't want to. Right? Because that's like one step away. The chores that you'll have to do eventually. But what about the things that you don't have to do eventually, but you still really want? Like, let's say you want to write a book. That's not like doing the dishes. You know you got to do the dishes at some point, otherwise it'll get really gross, and you'll probably turn your kitchen sink into a petri dish that'll give you some foreign cancer. You'll make a bioweapon by accident. But writing a book or making a business, pursuing anything, you're going to have to sit there. And you're really, really going to have to sit with that, like, just needling frustration in the back of your head while you figure things out. And you'll only get a moment of clarity every once in a while. But if you don't do it, you won't get that thing. And the more you don't do it, the more you think about it, the greater the loss becomes once you never actually do it and once you actually become incapable of doing it. Therefore, suffer, bitch. Is this motivating yet? My biggest problem right now is that I need to learn Spanish irregular verbs. And for the longest time, I couldn't be fucked to write down 2 of them per day. And now guess what? 6 months has passed and I don't know any of them. I know 2 of them. But I don't know all their forms. I couldn't use them in a sentence. That makes me feel really stupid. So, I don't want to do this, but that's exactly why I'm going to do it. I'm going to make a promise to you that I'm going to put 2 Spanish regular verbs in the pinned comment of this video. And if I don't, either the video was just posted or don't listen to me. Because that's something so simple. But for some reason, for me, it's really, really hard. And it's not because it's hard, it's because I don't want to do it. But I do want to learn the language. Get a conundrum. You want to learn the language, but you don't want to learn the verbs. What the fuck, man? Don't you know verbs are part of language? You want to become a doctor, but you don't want to dissect cadavers, and now you failed your anatomy class and they're kicking you out of medical school. So for the ethical consideration of respecting the cadaver of somebody that donated their body to science, you are now not going to be able to save all the people you could have in your medical career. Don't you feel stupid? Don't you feel silly? Don't you feel a little ashamed of yourself? See where this goes. Do I need to really keep rambling on? Probably not. Essentially, do you want to suffer for the things that you actually want to be in life? For the things you want out of life? For the things you want to do in life? For the memories that you want to have of your life? Do you want to get to the end of your life and be embittered? Or do you want to be reconciled to the fact that you did the things that were hard that you could have done? Because personally, I think that the greatest sin of man is when man does not do, is not willing to do the things that he knows himself uniquely capable of. And here's the thing, is that the more time you put into your dreams, the more of an information hazard they become. Because the more you know about how to achieve a dream, the more you realize the amount of things that you're not doing. So if you have a dream and you're really not planning on doing anything about it, but you just research it because it's fun to think about and it's an idea, stop. Because you're just going to make that shit haunt you. Because your brain is thinking that you're preparing to actually do something when you're not. So please, do things for the things that you're going to do. Because otherwise, you're just idling. It becomes useless information to research something that you're not going to actually apply. Then you feel like you have wasted time. None of us want wasted time. On the other hand, if you're actually working toward a dream, and you do inevitably fail, but you worked towards it, you were tenacious about it, you had the willpower, well, guess what? You failed, and now you have the ability to do it again with something else. And that's not something that comes easy. You're not starting from square one. You're starting from the best place possible. That's all I'm saying. Because if you get to that point where you fail and you genuinely did everything that you could, you're probably going to have a really buff, jacked anterior mid-cingulate cortex. And if you don't let it just waste away, then you're probably going to do really well in the next thing that you do. So that should be consoling, is that if you always do what you don't want to do, and you always give your all towards the things that you actually do want in every single aspect, the minutia, the magnutia, everything else, you will eventually end up doing something, even if it's not the thing you originally set out to do. On the other hand, we've got motherfuckers that will say that they've done everything and they still can't get that thing. They don't know what to do. They can't start. There's this and that. But honestly, that's a mindset issue. That's the pursuit of avoidance talking to you. Because you will strain everything but your good old anterior mid-cingulate cortex to do that, to avoid doing that thing. It's a problem. It's going to sit there atrophied and weak. Weak, not because you're not strong, but weak because you never tried to become strong. So, again, suffer, bitch. Do it now. I almost forgot about the irregular verbs. You guys got to remind me about the irregular verbs, because if I cannot do this, I'm cooked. It's the kids saying these days, what is it, brain rot talk? I don't know. Cooked in an oven. Cooked and based. Based is a way that you cooked something. B-A-S-T-E. Based. Believe. Not based. B-A-S-E-D. No, I was trying to make a clever joke, but then I realized they sound exactly the same, so I got to bring in the spelling, and then it's not funny anymore. Also, the content gets a little bit better if I start out by thinking of a title that's a bit inflammatory and just going off of that basis. So I think I'm going to be doing that a little bit more. What do you think? What do you think about that? Getting freaky, looking at the camera. Also, the more eccentric that I look, by the way, the more people will likely engage because it's funny to look at a funny looking person and hear funny sounding opinions. Because then people are like, oh, there's more room for criticism here. I can't take you seriously unless you look serious. Look at this. Look at this faggot sitting under a bed. Why should I take his opinion seriously? But we're bringing back the human aspect to YouTube. Only humans allowed. None of you brain rot robots. Get the fuck out of here. What are you going to do with your life? There's no job market for you. You can't just watch TikTok brain rot videos all day. My eyes have been hurting recently. And that sucks. You know? Been staring at screens too long. What can you do? I've got to keep up with the times, rot my brain. Yeah, I'm out of things to say. Except for the fact that knee surgery is tomorrow. Hang on. I gotta do the Chad face and say knee surgery is tomorrow. That feeling when knee surgery is tomorrow. Okay, yeah, I've embarrassed myself enough for the day.